Jessie can screen share because you can imagine we did a lot of chat before we went live and I forgot to do that today. But you can now screen share, so we're all good to go. Thanks everyone.
Naomi. Okie doke. So, hey everyone, nice to see you if we haven't met before. I joined the Social Enterprise Scotland team in August. So if you had never met me, then I'm doing comms and marketing, and Duncan is still in the team, just focusing on policy. I wanted to show you just a little bit of information. I'm glad that Rachel talked about this question of, how consumer habits are changing. These are numbers that you might have seen before from the ONS or from co-op studies, which were kind of already highlighting that over the last 20 years, consumer habits were clearly changing, with in real terms, people spending per household per year from, around £200 on ethical products to 1.2K, which is a big increase over 20 years. And it's kind of all across segments, with food and drink leading the way. So this is why, we often talk about organic and fair trade, because these are the ones that have already started to make their way in people's minds and to change their behavior in the product choices that they make here and there when they can afford it. But it's also across lots of different things. If you have a niece or a daughter who's in her 20s, you might know she has an app on her phone called Depop, potentially, where she can swap clothes or sell clothes that she's used already. Charity shop sales have never been higher in terms of secondhand clothing. So all these things we knew were already happening, and prove that if you are a social enterprise, then there's a very good chance for you to take a piece of the pie, because that's a trend that's growing. With the pandemic, this is a question I ask myself. Is this trend accelerating? It is. I've kept an eye last year on, data points that showed this. So I've included some here, happy to send them to you after the webinar. But overall, people just are happy to pay more for products that are local or ethical or sustainable. It doesn't mean it's going to be every consumer, but I think it's very positive to see that it's a growing trend. And Rachel also mentioned that she keeps an eye on social media to understand kind of consumer insights. That four bullet point here, the fact that last year, in the difficult kind of times that we were in, there was a huge jump in consumers actually going online and sharing brands and products from ethical, sustainable, kind of companies that they had bought from, they were recommending. For me, this is a really strong sign that we're going one step further. It's not just about deciding for yourself, okay, I'm going to make a more ethical choice, but people are going further and actually recommending to friends and peers. There's a little bit of virtue signaling, if you want to be cynical about it, but I think that it's still a good sign that this is something that's accelerating at the moment, and that we can take part in. So now I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you about this campaign that we ran in December. Just going to minimize my screen here. So if you have seen this campaign, essentially we were running something called Biosocial Scotland in the first 3 weeks of December. And this was the pilot campaign. It's the first time we did something like this, which was kind of a sustained effort to promote social enterprises, products, services, and experiences to consumers. So why did we decide to run this pilot? If you were involved, and I've seen a few of you here in the chat, so great to see you, you will know that if, the pandemic hit everyone, social enterprises included, small businesses, big businesses, when it comes to trading social enterprises that had, premise and lost footfall during several lockdowns, they were not always maybe running a lot of their efforts digitally. They were not necessarily integrated with e-commerce. So there was a good opportunity here to try and help them boost a little bit their presence and help their sales grow. Also last year from the summer, a lot of retail experts were saying that if people had really kind of kept the purse strings tight through the first 6 months of the pandemic, because they couldn't necessarily spend Christmas with their family, it was going to be a year where people were going to spend more online. And there were, the message of buying gifts that are thoughtful, that you could purchase online and send directly to someone, was going to be a bigger year. So this was a good opportunity to essentially try something. Okay, so this is an overview of the campaign tactics that we did, and I want it to be super transparent. You'll see through, I've included some metrics as well, but essentially what we thought is that we would build a digital kind of effort that would be a hero website, so we could make it easier for people to find social enterprises, have digital content across channels, reach out to the press and media, do some social ads, and also reach to online influencers. So trying lots of different things, honestly, to see what would work better, what people would engage with, and especially how we could reach beyond our own network, our own community in the third sector, and actually get in front of consumers. So the consumer research Naomi mentioned before, when we started working on this campaign, it was September last year. So we only had 2 or 3 months to pull everything together. And an important thing we didn't want to do was to make huge assumptions. When you think about ethical consumer behavior in general, there's some data points out there. There are people who are researching things. There's big business who's backing surveys. But when it comes to social enterprise, we didn't really have a very strong kind of benchmark when we were trying to understand, you know, how many people in Scotland were actually engaging with social enterprises, buying from them, and what were some drivers or barriers to purchase. So you might not be surprised to see this, but there is still some confusion for people, even when they are ethical consumers, understanding what's the difference between an ethical business who, let's say, is using recycled products, a sustainable business that, you know, helps you by, you know, having an impact, and a social enterprise who's actually potentially has an asset lock and is reinvesting all of its profits into the community. For consumers, that is kind of goes above their head. It's not something that they naturally understand, and it will take time to build that awareness in people. So the good news, though, is that most people had heard of the term. They were just not sure what it means. And then when we were telling people what a social enterprise is, there were actually, you know, a good number who were engaged, who were interested. The fact that people have a social or environmental mission is a good driver of purchase, but it still doesn't come before what the product actually is. So that's an important thing for you to consider, is that even if we often think about, you know, the customers who are buying from social enterprises, at the end of the day, it's the biggest driver of purchase is always going to be, do they like the product? Is it what they were looking for? You know, do they have all the information about it, like pictures, description, how quickly can they get it? You know, like all of that is still key. Then environmental mission, social mission comes after that. And then pricing, we were talking about this in the chat just before, was actually quite far down the list of drivers. So it's not necessarily what is making people purchase or not from social enterprises. One of the biggest barriers you see here on the last bullet point is that people just don't know where to find social enterprises. So even the ones who are keen to support social causes and want to make a difference in communities, that's a message that resonates with them. They just don't know where to find social enterprises in store, locally to them, or online. One other things we did after running the consumer research is that we ran a bootcamp. Some of you might have taken part. Essentially, this was 8 webinars for social enterprises to help them sort of in October and November look a little bit at, you know, what they were doing online when it comes to brand communications, marketing, and help them level up. So this was a really interesting kind of program, and it was free to attend. We had over 300 people sign up for these 8 sessions overall. So on the Buy Social Scotland website, we're going to add a resource page with all of the videos and all of the PDF sheets from these sessions. So if you keep an eye on that, and we can send it to all the attendees today, then that's going to be one more thing that gives you some practical tips if you want to, you know, sort of build up on your efforts. And as Rachel mentioned, start, you know, from July onwards, really thinking about Christmas so that you capture those 2 or 3 last months of the year to really promote yourself. So why is this campaign called Buy Social Scotland? You potentially have heard the term bisocial before. It's a hashtag and a global movement, which is in 11 countries around the world, and that is trying to promote social enterprises to consumers, but also to local authorities, corporates, all kinds of different audiences. That said, there isn't always cohesion in the way these bisocial efforts run. So in building this online resource, one of the challenge was, how do you promote hundreds of social enterprises at the same time when they don't sell the same things, they don't look the same way, they have different branding, they have different messages, there's different key issues that they work on, and that is at the core of their business. So essentially what we did is to make this umbrella brand, just so that it would be easier for the consumer to just get it right away, understand that like they can find all of these social enterprises in one place, and that this is businesses who are ethical, sustainable, and reinvest most of their profits around key issues. It was also to have sort of a, Rachel mentioned before, she talked about kind of like competitive landscapes. I think it's important to consider that when we are talking to ethical consumers, the places where they purchase, the brands that they engage with, they are high quality. I'm just going to use my own example here, but if I'm shopping for Christmas gifts, it's possible I'll look at the Etsy website, which is a marketplace where you have, products and gifts from independent designers, from local makers. So it's very possible that a lot of ethical consumers, when they look at different social enterprises, they can see there's different levels of quality and comfort and time that people can spend with their comms and marketing. So that's something that we were trying to counteract, essentially. So this website, buysocialscotland.com, if you have a look, you'll see it doesn't really look like something from, our sector, hopefully, and a bit more like something that is, like a normal kind of consumer website, which is kind of product-led and very visual and makes it easy to look around for gifts. There's several points of entry. If you look at the website, you can see you can find from 110 social enterprises and almost 150 product, services, and experiences. You can filter by location, you can filter by type of products that you're looking for, or you can filter by key issues. So if you're someone who's really passionate, a consumer who's passionate about fighting homelessness, then you can actually tick a box in the list of key issues on the gift directory and find products that are going to, make an impact on this specific issue. An important thing to note is that it's not an e-commerce site. In like 2 months, we couldn't build something with all those logistics, but the idea is on the site to take consumers as quickly as possible from them browsing different products and seeing them to the social enterprise sell page. So essentially on the right, you can see we have the product listings. When you click on one of them, you have a page split in two. At the top, there's information about the product and a purchase button and photos and a description. And then at the bottom of the page, there's information about the social enterprise itself, all of its key links like websites, social media pages, a description of their impact, and maybe some photos of the team or behind the scenes. So for this first pilot in December, we've had a good mix of social enterprises added to the site with 1 or 2 listings per social enterprise. And interestingly for you, if you're not a social enterprise Scotland member, don't worry, because this is open to everyone. So to get people on the site, we have a Google form. It's, very much like self-referral or recommendations. We had over 10 other organizations who gave us a hand and sent some recommendations for social enterprises to add. So it's absolutely free to be added. And if you're interested, then a few further slides down, I have a link for you. We also made this hero video because based on that consumer survey, we really wanted to have an awareness sort of educational piece to tell people about social enterprise. So we made this 60 seconds video that we put on YouTube. I have the link for you here. And it's really kind of easy to watch, and it's starting to kind of put that message into action of what social enterprise, what do they do? You can buy things from them and all the different kind of things that if you buy, then your pound goes further and actually makes an impact. You can make a difference. It worked really well on YouTube and on Facebook and Instagram. On YouTube, we promoted a bit, but a lot of it was actually shares, people who send this video to other people. The video was also available to download. So we have a campaign drive for Buy Social Scotland. And on there's lots of assets like this video that you can download and share, but also things like social media images, social copy drafts. We have a press release template, all kinds of things that are here to help social enterprises promote themselves. And, last December could help them just take things off the shelf because they were busy, they were spending time on applying for grants. So how to make it as quickly and easy as possible for them to get involved and then do a bit of promotion without having to, spend a lot of time on this. So running over 3 weeks, social was a really key driver for us of, kind of reaching out to consumers, not just in our own area, but you can see here we reach almost 1 million people on social channels on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So it worked really well, even though it was only over 3 weeks. So that makes us really positive about the future of, if we have a more sustainable effort going on and different key consumer timings through the year, and then the longer campaign at Christmas that doesn't run just over 3 weeks, but maybe runs across October, November, December, then, sky is the limit. We also had some blog articles on the site, and we plan to keep this up. So we had one for last minute Christmas gift. We have one for Valentine's, and we're planning one for Mother's Day. We had a gift guide, which was an interactive PDF, which was little collection, you know, gifts for him, gifts for foodies, gifts for adventurers. And so we have all of these templates available to run things again. Press and media coverage. So as you can imagine, December was very competitive in terms of reaching out to journalists and trying them to feature the campaign, but more than the campaign, to feature social enterprises. And at the time, you know, we were all talking about COVID, what are going to be the regulations for Christmas. So we did 3 waves of press releases with different kind of approaches. And we actually got 40 pieces of coverage for the campaign. So we were really happy with that. More than that, the fact that there were 197 mentions of social enterprises by name or by URL was really good to put that in front of people in the national and local press. And there were 5 features which were specifically about a social enterprise. This is interesting for me because it really shows me that, you know, press is hungry for good stories, you know, stories of organizations that are making a difference, that, you know, help people make a difference. And I think that if you haven't reached to press before, then, you know, in this year ahead, if there are, you know, you have good information about the difference you make, maybe you've run some interesting programs, even if you are trying to promote a product, those are not 2 different stories. They can be the same story. And if you're reaching out to your local press, you know, they're hungry for content. They would definitely be happy to feature you at some point or another when they have time in their editorial calendar. So if you are a bit shy usually to reach out to journalists, don't. Because we did this at the last minute and it still worked. If you are wanting to be included in things like over next Christmas, things like, you know, gift guides in the consumer press, when you think about, I don't know, Grazia or, you know, Marie Claire, like all those kind of more consumer magazines, I really recommend starting to reach out to press in July. We will with this campaign, because a lot of the consumer journalists got back to us and said, this is interesting, but we start to plan all of those Christmas features in July. So here's a piece of advice for you, be early. Another interesting thing we did was working with influencers. So influencer marketing sounds a little bit scary. And when you think about influencers, it's easy to think Kim Kardashian, but no, there are, you know, thousands of people in Scotland who love to create content, who write about things to do in Scotland, gifts, sustainable living. There are influencers out there who create DIY content and talk about, you know, living in a way where you can have less of an impact on the environment. I'm happy to share with you, I used a tool I'll put in the chat, which is called Hipsy, and it was around £50, and I just used it for 1 month, and I was able to, you know, sort of like filter and find people that would be interesting for me to reach out to, and then just contacted them personally to see if they would be happy to talk about the campaign, to maybe select a few gifts on the site that they could promote, and to tag the social enterprises directly in their Twitter post, Instagram post, in their stories, and in YouTube videos. So this was really like a good learning. Even with not a lot of influencers involved, there were a lot of users reach, and especially interactions. That's a lot of interactions for only, you know, 19 posts and also. And I think it's because those consumers who follow these influencers, they really trust their recommendations. They like, you know, following their lifestyle. And if you know, the influencers say, check out this ethical gifts, you can make a difference, then that really resonates with people. Okay, just a couple more slides, bear with me. We also tested some social media ads. I know that's also something that can be scary if you have, you know, a small budget, you don't want to spend a lot of, or, you know, let's be honest, you think Facebook and Instagram is evil. And maybe they are a little bit, but again, with this campaign, one of the goals was to put this content directly in front of consumers and people beyond our own community. So we did try things a little bit. We promoted some kind of interactive ads that were sharing the campaign message and led to the website. We promoted the video itself. And then we also did these little carousels, which worked really, really well. So, you know, sometimes if you're thinking it's a bit icky to kind of promote your product, this shows this was the best of, you know, this format of ad creative was the one that worked the best. So it was like mini gift collections with like 5 recommendations, and people could flick through. And these worked really well. They drove almost 18,000 clicks to the website. This is just an overview of the campaign key metrics. I'm happy to be transparent. I have loads more data if you're interested. But overall, the campaign, everything considered, reached 1.5 million across Scotland, which is a big number. And this was an important goal for us because the awareness, raising awareness for social enterprises, who they are, what they sell, the difference they make, that was an important step. If you are thinking more about visits to the website, there were over 23,000 users on the site in December, and they actually spent over a minute browsing gifts and then clicking through. Just under 4,000 people click through on that purchase button on each ethical gift listing. Obviously, that was over 150 products, 100 social enterprises, but what's really encouraging is to see that 38% of the first 100 gifts that we set up actually sold out. So right now we're doing the work of sort of crunching all this data, talking to each social enterprise to see, what sales amounts they saw on their side, and also especially what feedback they have from this first campaign so that we can improve things going forward. Rachel talked about demographics, so I wanted to share this with you. This was really interesting. When we went into the campaign, I honestly thought that younger demographics, millennials and Gen Z, so maybe people between kind of like 15 and 35, would be the main people who would engage with all the content from the campaign. And actually here you can see that, on Facebook and Instagram, there was a really good proportion of people who were, 45 plus, 55 plus, 65 plus. So that's really good to see and a good learning for us for next time. What's next? Getting to the end here, but basically we are thinking right now, about like the maintenance strategy for the site. We don't really have, at the moment, extra resources for this. So it's our team working on the side of our core projects, but we want to grow it. We want to add more social enterprises. We want to add listings through the year. We want to be able to target those specific consumer times that Rachel mentioned, like, Easter and Mother's Day. Thinking about the summer when things reopen, if we can do staycations, that's the thing we could do as well. And then doing Christmas, in advance over a long period of time. Naomi, who's on this call, is also working on a corporate challenge. So one interesting thing that happened in December is that we had a few inquiries from corporates who said, hey, I saw this gift on the side. That's interesting. Maybe I would like to purchase, 20 units or 50 units or 100 units. So there is an appetite from corporates for social enterprises. And so Naomi's looking into that, doing a piece of research, but also talking to corporates that she can sign on, who are going to commit to spend some money with social enterprises as part of their supply chain. And she'll also plan a bootcamp series like we did for Buy Social Consumer for more corporates. If you are not on the site, we would love to add you. It is absolutely free. So you can use this Google link here at the bottom, or you can email us. And we have a little Google form where you can add information about your social enterprises and the product, service, or experience you'd like to add. If you're selling a service that is for B2B, we still want to hear from you because we are planning to build a mirror site of this one, which is going to be about services for corporates and local authorities and all that kind of thing. So we would have those two sites living next to each other, and people could, use the one that they need depending on the target audience. That's it for me. I hope this wasn't too long. I know it was a lot of information, so I hope that wasn't overwhelming, but very happy to answer questions and tell you more.
Thank you so much, Jessie. Lots of questions, I guess, in my mind as well, as we kind of bring those two presentations together. I would actually love to be able to pick Rachel's brains on the Buy Social site offline in terms of how can we really make it fit and work better. I think that would be an amazing thing to do. It was our first attempt at it, I think, in terms of going out there. I think we got some good traction, but the thing that we made key, and it's where I'd encourage people, is the products were the key thing. So there's the photos of the products. People could find out more about social enterprise if they wanted to, but the first thing they saw was products. So, again, it's that shift of kind of, it sounds awful, but moving us all off this holier than thou platform that doesn't sell products. The products sell the products. So, it's great what we all do, but we've got to put ourselves in the minds of people buying. A few more questions did come in. but I'm going to be a bit naughty, really, because I know we're over time and a few people are leaving. Someone asked a great question about environmental packaging, and I was going to come back to my poor bananas, actually, because I've got to be honest, my bananas aren't fair trade, because the fair trade ones are covered in plastic, and I choose to avoid plastic. So, you know, this is how complicated our buying decisions are. But what I was going to do, I'm conscious we're over time. If there's any burning questions, just pop them up. We may not get to them now because we're about to go. But sign up for the Retail Academy. You will have had a small insight today on all the stuff that you can learn. It really is a small insight in terms of all of the tips. They have loads of expert speakers. I've put the link in the chat as we went through today. So if you want to be able to pick Rachel's brains and hear from other experts in this field, that is the place to go. If you want to join the Bisocial campaign, again, Jess has shared the link. We'd love to have you on the campaign. I kind of see it as, you know, use us to do free marketing on your behalf. You've got nothing to lose. We're not charging you, it's free. So you might as well use it as not. The more we have on there, the more products, the more it's likely to build up the site. The thing that will make it fall apart is if it doesn't look interesting enough to the consumer and we don't have enough on there. So we all want to really hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was a great session. I loved it today, and I'll be with you all again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for joining, everyone.